it might not be Joe Biden as the candidate for the Democrats. It might be Michelle Obama. And Michelle Obama is now going on yet another publicity tour. I don't think she's selling a book or anything. She appeared on a podcast and talked about how horrible it is to be Michelle Obama.
The things that keep me up because you don't have control over them. And you wonder, where are we in this? Where are our hearts? What's going to happen in this next election? I am terrified about what could possibly happen because our leaders matter. Who we select, who speaks for us, who holds that bully pulpit. It affects us in ways that sometimes I think people take for granted.
All right, couple things here. First of all, did you notice talking about our leaders and how she's terrified and she stays up at night about our leadership in this next in 2024? She talked about the leaders that we select. Did you notice that? That's the word she is. Should we hear it one more time? Real fast, real fast, real fast.
About what could possibly happen because our leaders matter. Who we select, who speaks for us.
Who we select. That's a fascinating word to use when you're talking about the democratic process in our constitutional republic. We don't actually select our leaders. We elect our leaders. Except if Joe Biden doesn't end up being the nominee for the Democrats, and at the convention they have to have a contested, brokered situation where they actually do select a nominee. A lot of people don't think Joe Biden's going to make it all the way to the ticket, but of course it's too late to have a Democrat primary and caucus process. The DNC has done their best to make sure that there isn't a fair selection or election for Democrat voters. So you're going to get Joe Biden right up until the convention. And then if Joe Biden steps down, well then the Democrat members of that convention, the delegates, they will select a leader. Also, that convention is in Chicago, Illinois, hometown of her, Michelle Obama. Fascinating, isn't it? Now, this podcast she's appearing on is called the Jay Shetty Podcast. That's right. It's a truly Shetty podcast, which, by the way, affirms something that I've been saying for over a decade now. Anybody out there can have a podcast. You, too, can have your own Shetty podcast and build your own audience. Jay Shetty, by the way, specializes in mental health issues, has people on the show that suffer from mental health trauma. In fact, one of the most famous interviews that Jay Shetty has done on his Shetty podcast is with Jada Pinkett Smith, who, of course, has been traumatized by many, many mental health crises in the past couple of years, including the whole Will Smith and Chris Rock slap thing at the Oscars. Jada Pinkett Smith, though, doesn't have much in common with Michelle Obama. It's not like both of them are married to men who have had rumors circulating around them about their sexuality, right? They don't have that in common at all. But I'm sure they have something else in common. I'll figure it out one of these days. Michelle Obama went on to talk about the life in America as a Black person, because, Michelle Obama being worth over $70 million with multiple mansions. And, oh, by the way, she was the first lady of the United States, immune from any criticism from anyone in the mainstream. She's had it pretty damn rough.
The White House tests you in ways that you never anticipated. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we came out as a family, as individuals, the four of us, me and our two daughters, that was us. Mm-hmm. That was our values, our compassion, our smarts, our strategy that got us through. I'm so proud of my husband and the way he led, the way his administration worked, the team that we built. So proud of everyone. I may have diverted from the question, but
beautiful. Please continue.
I think that's because of who we are. And I know that now.
I can see it in your eyes and feel it from your words. Like it must be hard, like knowing that, it can't always be that way in one sense. It's almost like great that you've been able to leave, but there's that feeling also of like, oh, but that was great.
I mean, the bars are different for people in life. That I've learned. This is the thing about being an other. You learn how to be excellent all the time because you can't be less than. Other people can. Other people can be indicted a bunch of times and still run for office. Black man can't.
Okay, so a couple of things here, and I'm pretty sure I'm about to get in trouble. First of all, Mrs. Obama, I hate to break it to you, but your husband should have been indicted for multiple things while he was in the White House and before he was in the White House and after he was in the White House. In fact, the color of his skin is probably the thing that has prevented him from being under scrutiny like any other politician would be. And then secondly, when you're an other, she considers herself an other. She was celebrated and honored, and they're naming streets after this woman. She was the most photographed woman on the planet. They continue to put her on the covers of magazines as a heroine, and yet she still has this victim mentality. I mean, I'm glad she's doing this mental health podcast because there is something wrong if you are living the life of Michelle Obama and still feel like you are a victim. And one other thing about that statement you just heard from her. Did you hear the humble brag? You know, the bar is different when you're an other. You have to be perfect. That's what she's basically saying. You know, I am under so much scrutiny because of the color of my skin that it's forced me to be impeccable. It's forced me to be perfect. It's rough being me, being perfect. Oh my God. There aren't enough eyes to roll here. There's one other thing, this really Shetty podcast that Jay Shetty is conducting here. There's one other thing that Michelle Obama said here at the beginning that I want to focus on.
The White House tests you in ways that you never anticipated. And the fact that we came out as a family, as individuals, the four of us, me and our two daughters, that was us. That was our values, our compassion, our smarts, our strategy. That
again, the humility here, you know, the fact that we emerged from, what do you mean emerge? For God's sake, you were given a yellow brick road of gold with offers from Netflix and books and movies and tens of millions of dollars. I mean, for crying out loud. But let me just afford her the benefit of the doubt here. We emerged from our 8 torturous years as the most powerful couple on the planet in the White House because of our smarts and our compassion and our principles and our values. Okay, I'm going to stipulate all of that. Why doesn't she afford that same courtesy to anyone else in the country? Think about it for a minute. She and her husband prey on people's insecurities and prey on the divisions in this country over race, over sex, over religion. And they will have you believe that because of the color of your skin, because of your body parts, because of who you're attracted to sexually, or because of your ethnicity or your religious faith, if you're not a white male Christian, then anything bad that happens to you isn't really your fault. It's because of the systemic discrimination and bigotry in this country, right? I mean, this is what they thrive on, is that philosophy, that idea. But you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me that you have succeeded because of your principles and your values and your intelligence and your compassion. Yet at the same time, if people don't succeed, well, it's not their fault. It's not because of their lack of principles. It's not because of their lack of values. It's not because of their lack of smarts. It's not because of their lack of compassion. It's because of systemic racism or systemic homophobia or systemic sexism or whatever. Just fill in the blank. Do you see how manipulative this is? The fact is, she's right. She and her husband, and I'm guessing her children, have pretty successful lives in this country because they work their tails off, because they did get an education, because they did have good values and principles. You learn about Michelle Obama's father, who had 3 jobs and was barely around because he wanted to make sure that his daughter had an opportunity in life. That's a great American success story. She will not tell it that way. She will say that they had to fight against systemic racism and it's a miracle that they made it out. No, actually, it's not a miracle. It's hard work. It's doing the right thing. She will never say that about other people, though. She'll only say it about herself when she can pat herself on the back. And it would have been great if this podcast happened with an interviewer that was less interested in, well, being Michelle Obama's best friend, let's say, rather than actually focusing on what she was saying. Mr. Shetty there on his Shetty podcast, not really a journalist, really interested in getting those clicks by having Michelle Obama. I get it. I understand.